Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report, and another range report on a really expensive and really nice 1911. This is the Staccato XC. Take a look at that. Now, Staccato obviously is a maker of fine 1911s, primarily in the 2011 format, so the double stack style of 1911s that uses the modular grip system that I guess was designed by STI. Now, I was corrected about that in my last video when it came to the Nighthawk Custom, that not every double stack 1911 is a 2011. It has to do with a very specific type of modular design. So I learned something from you guys, just like hopefully you learned something from me. But this is an awesome firearm, and this firearm is on loan to the channel from my good friend D. He just wants to be known by his first initial, and I am honored and humbled that he entrusts me with such amazing firearms that are on loan to the channel for me to get to shoot and bring you this content. I also want to thank the Patreons, as always, who support my content with a monthly donation. Thank you so much. I'm honored and humbled. You guys know you guys keep the lights on around here and help me get all of the equipment also to bring all this content to you. And as always, I want to give a huge shout out to my sponsor for every single range report, Brownworks. Brownworks is a company that makes fine custom wood grips for a wide variety of firearms, but I know if you're watching this video, you probably love 1911s, as I think almost everybody does. And let me tell you, Brownworks makes some of the finest 1911 grips on the market. Not only are they fine grips, but they can also be customized to your heart's desire. He makes them from many different types of exotic woods, can finish them in many different ways. He can produce laminate woods and even put on custom logos and engravings. He can make your grips for your 1911 one of a kind, something that you would be proud to own and put on an heirloom type of firearm that maybe is your barbecue gun. And trust me, if you get a set of Brownworks 1911 grips, they will be one of a kind and you will not be disappointed. I own a few sets myself, and I know all the subscribers who I talk to who have bought from Brownworks are very satisfied, and they love the fact that Mark over there, who's the owner of Brownworks, has such amazing customer service. And if there's something on his website that you don't see that you want, drop him an email, give him a call, and I guarantee you that he will set you up with exactly what you're looking for. So please use the affiliate link, which is in the description and in the pinned comment. I'm also going to put a discount code over there for 10% off your first grips from Brownworks. And when you contact Mark and buy a set of grips, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk about this awesome 2011 from Staccato. Now, it is my understanding that Staccato is a Texas company. So yes, a gun company based here in the great Republic of Texas. Now, all joking aside, I know we're a state, but here living in Texas, I learned very fast that, of course, Texas was once its own country, and people that live here wish it still was. But this is a Texas-based firearms company making some awesome and beautiful 1911s. And these are very expensive and fine firearms. So are they worth the money? You know, a lot of companies today are making these 2011 style guns. And as I said before, a 2011 style gun is based off of the STI design. So this does have a modular grip frame, which I'm not a huge fan of because you cannot replace the side grips. Just like I was talking about with those Brownworks grips on a standard 1911, well, this is one complete module. Now, I do know they offer different types of modules with different types of textures, but this is kind of the standard one. And because it's a double stack, it's a little bit wider than your standard 1911. Now, this particular example is chambered in 9mm, and it does have the compensator on the front. So that's what this gun is. So let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about this gun. First and foremost, from just handling this gun, let me tell you, this thing is built really well. You hold this thing and it is just nicely finished. I don't see really any machine marks on it. The fit from the slide to the frame is outstanding. It just looks and feels extremely high quality. So when you drop all the money that this thing costs, let me tell you, I don't think you're getting a poorly made product at all. This thing is refined. Really, really nice. It's just as nice as that Nighthawk Custom 1911 that I recently reviewed. I'm very impressed with it. And this is actually my first experience with one of these Staccatos. I also love the fact that this model is that two-tone color. That black and silver look absolutely fantastic. I also really like the sights on this as compared to the Nighthawk. This has very tall sights. I would call them suppressor height sights, but this barrel is not threaded for a suppressor, but it is designed to co-witness, I guess not really co-witness, but be able to use the iron sights if your red dot is not working. So those sights are really tall in the back and in the front. I really like that, and you can see them through this Trijicon SRO. And that also brings me up to the fact that this is milled out obviously for an optic. And that's also great because I'm really enjoying red dots on many of these pistols that I'm shooting. It's not something that I think I would use every day or on my carry guns, but I really appreciate them on my range guns or any gun that's designed for performance. They're really awesome, especially if you get them sighted in really well. So to have that milled out slide is fantastic. Another thing about this I like over many of the other 1911s, and this is going to be the trigger. As you can see, this one is curved. Yes, finally, a curved trigger. You guys hear me complain all the time about those flat-faced triggers. They work really well, especially in 1911s. They're just not as comfortable to me as these curved triggers are. And this one finally has a really nice curved trigger. It feels really good in my hands and on my finger. I really feel like I get a nice even pressure on that. It's very, very nice. So finally, a curved trigger. I also really like the fact that this gun has ambi controls. Some of the guns that I've reviewed in the past of the 2011 variety sometimes were only one-sided. This one actually has the controls on both sides for the ambi safety selector. That's really nice. It actuates really nice. That detent is really solid. I like that. Has a great mag well, and of course the capacity on these things is the big selling point. This magazine says it holds 20 rounds of 9mm in a 1911. And I know there are going to be some 1911 purists out there that say a 1911 can only be chambered in 45 ACP. And I'm kind of there with you. But let me tell you, having 20 rounds of 9mm, that might be a little bit more firepower than 8 or 9 rounds of 45. So that's a huge selling point to me as well. This gun also has every feature on it that you would want in an upgraded 1911, such as the combat style hammer. You've got a very nice beaver tail and the compensator there on the front. Let me see if I can get that into focus as well. There it is. Look at that thing. That thing is a beast. Let me tell you what. All right, so now that I've told you about everything that I like about it, well, let's talk about a couple of things that I don't like. Well, I've already kind of alluded to one, and that is going to be this 2011 style of frame. I really wish this thing had traditional grip panels on it like a 1911. You could customize it better, and I think kind of tailor it to your hands a little bit more. Having these modular panels, I think really is a little bit limiting, and they're not as available as, let's say, standard grips. I know people are going to tell me, well, you can buy them everywhere. Yeah, you can. You can't order them. But just having those two little grip screws on both sides to change out grips, I think is really nice, and I would prefer to have that style over this. Another thing that I am not a huge fan of, but I could live with, is the full-length frame. I talked about this with the Nighthawk Custom as well. So you have this frame that comes all the way out to the front of the gun. I really like those scallop cuts on a traditional 1911. This just looks a little plain and boring. It has that slab side look to it. It's just not as cool and curvy as I would like my 1911 to be. But some people in my last video said they really like that design, and that's totally cool. I know that's kind of a qualitative thing to talk about. And the last thing I want to talk about that I kind of find odd, and I understand why some people will like it and agree with the aesthetic choices, but these lightning cuts here on the side of the slide. I like the lightning cuts, however, they're not really functional. They look really cool, and my only concern with non-functional lightning cuts or any type of cut that's designed to limit the weight of the slide is, can debris and particulate get inside the action of the gun? And for me, that's a big yes. I don't know if I really would like to have this, especially if I was going to use this for defense or carry, especially if I might drop it in dirt or mud. It's going to get right into that action. So for me, if you're going to have the cuts, they need to be functional. So if this was some type of compensator or compensated barrel up here, I think it would be absolutely fine. But for me, if it's going to be there, I want them to be functional. But those are really the only things just handling it here on the workbench that I'm not a huge fan of, but they're not deal breakers in any stretch of my imagination. So this is still a fine firearm. And they're all just qualitative things that I don't like. So let's get this thing to the range. I'm really anxious to see how this thing's going to shoot. I've never shot a Staccato before, so let's see if this thing is as accurate and as sweet shooting as everyone says it is. All right, so that was a full magazine of 20 rounds at 7 yards, and man, is this thing super accurate. I'm also blown away by the extremely light recoil impulse of this particular firearm, and I kind of wonder if that's where they got the name for this gun. I'm a professional musician, and the term staccato usually is a musical indication telling musicians to play a certain passage or a particular note in a very light and detached style. And this gun kind of shoots that way. It's very light and very crisp. I like that, so I don't know if that's the origin of the name, but it makes sense after shooting it. Something I did notice about this particular slide, and I've talked about this in some guns in the past, because maybe it's chambered in 9mm and the slide is so heavy, the recoil spring doesn't really have to be that stout. So when I rack this slide, I don't have to use a lot of energy at all, and I'm really surprised that it is so light, because a 9mm, while it's not the most powerful cartridge out there, it's not the weakest either, and it just kind of seems like that slide would come back really fast and kind of slam into that frame, but obviously these guns are really well tuned. But because that recoil spring is so light, I also feel like the action of this slide is a little bit slower than a traditional 1911. I really can't capture it on film, and I can't explain it any different than that. But it's like when I rack the slide and let it go, it doesn't go home with that same force and that same energy. It just kind of lightly goes into battery, very daintily. But it obviously seems to work, and I think I can shoot this thing pretty fast. So right now, I'm really impressed with how this thing is going at the range. So we're now going to do what I call the accuracy portion. And I know some people say this isn't really an accuracy portion because you're not bench resting the gun. Well, I'm not going to bench rest the gun. I like to go to the range and shoot the guns myself, and I just want to test it to see how me, as an average shooter, can shoot this thing accurately at further distances. You see how I shoot it at about 7 yards? Well, I'm going to double that distance. I'm going to aim for the head on the same IDPA target, and hopefully this group is not going to open up too much. So let's see how I do. Well, I am really impressed with that grouping I am really falling in love with this gun. It shoots great. It is extremely accurate. And I think the two things that make it accurate, of course, are going to be the red dot. This Trijicon SRO is a very high quality red dot, and once you have it zeroed in, it's awesome. Very visible, easy to acquire where your point of aim is. And I do have to say, this grip module that I kind of complained about in the beginning of this range report, I do like how big it is. I kind of have bigger hands with fatter fingers, and it conforms to my hand really well. I think if you have smaller hands, you're not going to like it as much, but we'll have to wait and see what my wife has to say about it, because she does have smaller hands. But for me, it really fits my hand well, and it keeps the pad of my finger on the trigger. I don't over insert my finger into that trigger guard too much, and so I really feel that plays a lot into this gun's accuracy. So it is a really accurate gun. It makes me look like a better shot than I actually am. Well, the next test I want to do is the quick magazine change. Sometimes, depending on the gun, I call this the defensive use, or in this case, I guess I'm going to call it the competition use. Now, I am not a competitive shooter, okay? So don't get mad at me when I say it's for competition use. I do know that this is a high-end race gun, and probably the way that I shoot is not as good as many of you guys that are probably competitors. But I am curious if I can change this magazine really fast. We have a double stack magazine that has a single feed. Once again, let me get that in focus there. And so that should make insertion of the magazine really fast and easy. Plus you have this gigantic mag well at the bottom. It's kind of like a jet funnel. So I'm going to assume you're not going to have any problems getting this magazine reinserted. I'm hoping these magazines are going to drop out. And I'm noticing here just on the workbench, when I do push that magazine release, they don't really eject with force. They just kind of fall out. So maybe if you're competing with this gun, that might slow you down just a little bit. I know a lot of competitors want that magazine to fling out of there as fast as possible. But for me as an average shooter using this in a defensive scenario, that might not be a problem. So let's just see how fast I can shoot 5 rounds, change the magazine, and shoot 5 more. All right, so that was really fast for me. Now, some of you guys might have thought that was really slow, but for me, I felt it was really easy to get that magazine out and get it back in action. So I'm really happy with that. And I do have to say I was point shooting, and while I didn't show the target, all of my rounds were on the silhouette. For just point shooting going fast, well, I'm pretty happy with that as well. Well, the next test I want to do is, can this thing run hollow points? Now, for me, if I own this gun, well, this would probably be a range gun or a competition gun, even though I'm not a competitor, but that's how I would treat it. But I know some people may want to use this gun for home defense or for carry. Yeah, it'd be a lot of money to invest in a carry gun, but I'm sure some people do it. So I think it's really important that we put some hollow points through it, because some guns can get really fidgety, especially these finely tuned 1911s when it comes to feeding hollow points. So I'm going to use some SIG Performance V-Crown in this, just kind of run maybe like half a magazine through it, just to make sure it functions and see how the recoil impulse is with some plus P ammunition. So let's see if it feeds hollow points. And of course, the gun shot hollow points just fine. It was just as accurate, but I will tell you, with this compensator, you kind of felt it in your face a little bit more. You can feel the concussion. It doesn't necessarily blow the gas backwards, it does blow it up, but you do feel it and you do see the flash a little bit more. And that's one of the detractions away about using a compensator as a home defense or personal defense firearm if you have to use it in low light situations. Some people say that could obstruct your view of the target. But I think it'd be perfectly fine, but you definitely feel that the Plus P ammunition is a little bit more sharp and crisp than your standard kind of range ammo, but it was perfectly fine, very manageable, and in many ways, even a lot less recoiling than your standard Glock using Plus P or standard ammunition. So it's still a really soft shooting firearm. Now, I know a lot of you guys are wondering, well, where's the footage of your wife Becky shooting this? We want to know what she has to think, and of course, we want to watch her shoot it. Well, she shot this thing really well, but unfortunately, the camera file, I guess, got a little bit corrupted, but I do have a screenshot of her target, and I'm not neglecting to show this because, yeah, she kind of shot it better than I did, because I'm going to show you the target. But let me tell you, she thought this thing was great, but she did outshoot me. So let me show you her target really fast. And that target was set out at 7 yards, and that was her first time shooting this gun. So simply, wow, yeah, she shoots it better than I do. So I'm really proud of her. So that is awesome. She said that she did like the size of this particular grip model, even though she does have smaller hands. And from standing behind the gun, she thought it was really loud because of the compensator, but when she actually shot it, it wasn't too bad. So she really liked it, thought it shot well, and said, well, I might actually look at one of these if they came in pink. And I guess if we had a couple $1,000 lying around, but she really enjoyed it. All right, so what are my final thoughts on this amazing 2011 Staccato XC two-tone compensated? Well, once again, like the Nighthawk Custom, this gun exceeded my expectations. I guess I kind of judged it based off of its looks. I was like, well, it's obviously well built, but for me, it's kind of boring looking. It doesn't really do anything for me aesthetically because it has that compensator, that long frame. It just looks a little bit boring. So everything about this gun that's going to have to win me over is going to have to be in the performance category. And in that category, it did not disappoint. I shoot this gun fantastic. It is exceptionally accurate. It makes me a better shot than I actually am. It is extremely light recoiling. I am blown away by the machine work and the time that went into this. It just feels great in my hand. So it is an exceptionally well-built, really nice firearm. And if you ever get a chance to shoot one of these Staccato 2011s, definitely do it. Even if you can't afford one, it's just like getting a chance to drive a Corvette or a really expensive sports car. You gotta do it at least once, and you really appreciate the fine mechanics and the time that went into the design of this gun. Now, what would John Moses Browning think about this after designing the 1911, what, 100 and I guess at this time 11 years ago? Well, I have no idea. He might think that this is a completely different gun and be really upset that we have somehow changed it beyond his initial designs. But I gotta say, this truly is the evolution of the 1911. It is really, really nice. It still has the heart of a 1911 in it, and that's why I think so many people like it. After all, the 1911 has been called America's gun, and this has just been modernized for modern times. And I think they do an exceptional job with it. So, on my star rating, how do I rank the Staccato XC two-tone comp 2011? Well, I have to be fair on this rating because on the Nighthawk Custom, I gave it 4.75 stars out of 5. And the reason I deducted just those few points were because of qualitative reasons, like the size of the frame and so forth. Well, I'm gonna have to do it on this gun too. I wanna give this gun a 5 out of 5 stars because I did shoot it better. But as I mentioned, and these are just my personal opinions because of the way it looks and the 2011 grip frame style, I have to deduct just a few points, but that's just me. But if I didn't care about those things, this is a 5 out of 5 star review. It is an exceptional gun, a lot of fun to shoot, and as I mentioned a number of times in this video, it makes me look like a better shot than I actually am. So this is just one well-built, well designed, well-shooting firearm that exceeded my expectations. So I think Staccato has won over a fan. So who knows, maybe one day I'll actually own one of these. But thank you, Dee, for lending it to the channel and giving me this opportunity to shoot it. So what do you guys think? Do you like these Staccatos? Do you like the aesthetics of it as compared to what I think? What are your experiences with these guns? Do you want to own one? I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. So let me know what you think. So, as always, thanks for watching.